Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Terry, I, Sugandha Pal, Research Associate from Transport and Urban Governance Group, would like to welcome you all and thank you for registering to our second webinar on future of electric auto rickshaw. So before we begin, I would like to share the format of Q&A first. So participants can raise their questions via chat box. And after those questions being addressed by our speakers, if any participant wants to speak to our panelist, you can click on the raise hand button, which will place a small hand icon next to your name in the participant list. So we'll also try our best to accommodate all the questions today itself. But due to a time constraint, if we couldn't do that, we would definitely answer your questions through an email. So now I would like to give a brief introduction of the project under which we are conducting this webinar series. The project is Namo Auto, which is funded by the European Union Switch Asia program. Under the project, Terry, along with other project partners, including Founderzone Accra, NVU Foundation, Women Health and Development, WAD, has been working for improving the livelihood of the auto drivers and enabling the transition to electric auto rickshaws in cities of Bangalore and Chennai. So as we all know that auto rickshaws are one of the worst affected communities at this point of time. And with this webinar, we aim to dwell on few questions, such as, what will be the impact on electrification of auto rickshaws due to lockdown? Then we can also discuss about the post-lockdown electric autos assist in capitalizing the environmental benefits, and also the role of government authorities, for the upliftment of the sector. So now moving towards the discussion, I would like to invite our moderator for this webinar, Mr. I.B. Rao, Visiting Fellow, Transport and Urban Governance Team, Terry. Mr. Rao is a former head of R&D and director of Maruti Suzuki Center for Excellence. Sir has served Maruti Suzuki for the last 36 years in different roles and positions in product development, engineering, and production engineering functions. Recently, he has joined Terry as a visiting senior fellow and is leading research in electric mobility. Welcome to you, sir. And over to you now, sir.
Good afternoon, Sugandha. I'm very happy to be here for this webinar on three-wheeler electrification related issues. Three-wheelers, as we call them, auto rickshaws in media, are one of the cheapest modes of transport and mainly serving the public transport requirements, catering for the last mile connectivity mostly. We have both people carriers and also freight carriers. What is important in auto rickshaw is the owner or the driver and their livelihood by operating the three-wheeler. During the COVID lockdown, because they were, the taxis and auto rickshaws were not allowed to fly on roads. This has badly affected the owners and drivers of auto rickshaws. So, and auto rickshaws normally have IC engines, both gasoline, diesel, and CNG operated powertrains. And for the last 4 years, the government has been promoting the electrification of these three-wheelers with a view of reducing the import of crude and also improving the air quality by reduction of tailpipe emissions. Whatever I know of electrification of automobiles, different segments of automobiles have different issues, and the ease with which electrification can be adopted on different segments of vehicles is very different. The general understanding is that the electrification of two-wheelers and three-wheelers is much simpler and easier to achieve compared to passenger cars, buses. So here, as part of the Terry project, we are trying to understand what are the issues in promoting or improving the penetration of electric three-wheelers. So we have very eminent speakers with us, Mr. Radhav Rao of Piaggio, Mr. Asaf Ahmed of, previous RTO, Karnataka government, and then we have Soham Bhattacharya and Miss Rohita Kochupillai. They are coming from different backgrounds and they will be addressing different aspects of the issue what we are going to debate. First, I would like to invite Mr. Raghav Rao, who is the DGM in Piaggio Vehicle Limited, and he is basically an automobile engineer with about 20 plus years of experience. He had rich experience from Bajaj Auto Limited, Kinetic Engineering, and TAPE. I would request Mr. Rao to talk about the industry status of electrification of three-wheelers and also highlight what are the basic issues in in enlarging the application of electrification of three-wheelers. Mr. Rao.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for a brief introduction, and thank you, Sri, giving this opportunity. As Rao sir stated, I'll just touch base on the industry dynamics, how it works. As everybody know, the three-wheeler is we call as last mile connectivity. For any purpose, if you take it, three-wheeler is the last touch point for your transport mobility solutions. So if you see it as a three-wheeler, this thing, it is continuously growing. Last 3-4 years, it is in a double-digit growth. Either it is IC engines stuff. If when it compares to electric mobility, it is promisingly growing at almost 30% rate. This is the main thing when look at three-wheeler industry. Both the segment, IC engines as well as electric mobility segment, electric rickshaws, it is promisingly growing at a double-digit growth when all other segments are degrowing. And another factor here, this is one of the leading employment generation source as a three-wheeler fraternity, three-wheeler segment. If you look at the way electrification is happening in India, there is a lot of thrust given by governments. There are subsidies given by central government to push this mobility solutions. And also a lot of emphasis is given by central government to create infrastructure, either it is fast charging mobile or fixed charging modules or probably there is a continuous encouragement from the central government stuff. That's how it is predominantly last 1 year from the October onwards when FAME 2 is given a lot of subsidies. You can see almost 61 cities identified to rampant this electric mobility solutions are creating infrastructure, which was going in a very good pace before COVID-19. Unfortunately, we struck with this pandemic. Slightly, there is a slowdown into that particular thing. Otherwise, as if I look at as a total industry electric segment, it is going to grow further robustly in coming years. All the sides, one side we can see a negativity of pandemic what brought in, but other side if you see it, this is one of the opportunity to push electric vehicles into market because there are a lot of migrants gone back to their villages. They will be looking for some sort of employment generation. So this is one of the segment which can create or cater those demands. The customer create employment for a short-term period or a long-term period. Yes, though I'm saying the positive side, the central government there is a push, there is a lot of incentivizations given, and it can also create a lot of employment sources. But yes, when it comes to the adaptation part, we are facing a lot of challenges. That is one. There is a basic confusion hovering around a lot of RTAs where central government is saying there is no permit required for electric auto rickshaws. But when it comes to a lot of local RTA levels or the state RTA levels, still there is a lot of administration gaps or a lot of lack of clarity on how to allow these vehicles on a non-permit models. If we allow it, what are the challenges? What the challenges they're going to face is how many vehicles will come on road. Is it we can able to handle it or not? All those challenges are popping up. That is one of the bottleneck when facing by a lot of manufacturers. And another thing, yes, there is ultimately the charging infrastructure, which though we are talking about last 3-4 years, very on electric infrastructure creation, but actually last 6 months only it started doing in a going in a good manner. So that is one of the bottleneck when it comes to CB business or three-wheeler business. Customer looks for less turnaround time. He need to quickly move. Most of the time he want to spend on road so that he can more earn and he can create his life better. So this is one of the charging infrastructure. Lack of charging infrastructure also delaying the adaptability of these solutions. Okay, so that is one another major challenge which faced by this sector. But as I said, citing these current situations, the migrant population, whatever is going back, and also the government, whatever the effort they kept in last 6 months to create an infrastructure, it is going to give very good results in the coming forward, maybe down the line 1 year and so it can give. Another viewpoint which I would like to give, if you look at this three-wheeler electric industry, electric mobility is divided into two segments. One is fixed battery model, the other is the swappable battery model. And also when it comes to battery concept, yes, it is lead acid as well as lithium ion. So as of now, whatever we are talking, whatever people see, most of the things are lead acid based electric auto rickshaws. But the future is going to evolve to e-auto electric autos, which are lithium based auto rickshaws, and it is going to be the future because maybe going forward we will discuss on that particular thing. There are a lot of questions raised by participants on what is the either fixed battery or the swappable battery that we will address. But yes, going forward we will be witnessing the swift change from e-rickshaws to e-auto category, where the lithium ion based batteries are going to lead a role, and it is going to bring the change in entire this three-wheeler domain.
Now I invite Mr. Swat Ahmed. He has 39 years of experience in transport department of Karnataka government. He worked as a RTO there. He is supposed to be ultimate about CMVR rules, state taxation, and he is a specialist in licensing, registration, and implementation of motor vehicle rules. I would like him to talk about what role can government play for upliftment of auto rickshaw segment. Mr. Ahmad, I think you have to unmute the speaker. Your speaker is muted. Yeah. Oh, again it's muted.
Buddy?
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. We are discussing a very important part of the mobility setup. Auto rickshaw basically is a very important component of the last mile as well as the first mile connectivity is concerned. And it is also a lifeline for a lot of drivers in the auto rickshaw fraternity of because a lot of drivers depend on the day-to-day survival, on the earning out of their driving these auto rickshaws. So we have a lot of programs like from the Government of India. We had the FAME 1, which started in 2015. And it extended up to September 2018. And thereafter we had FAME, and that was an outlay of about 795 crores. And the second part of FAME 2 was with an outlay of 8,730 crores for e-mobility. And now Government of India intends 100% EV by 2023 e-mobility for three-wheelers. And as we saw, Government of India and the Niti Aayog were very, very positive and trying to push the EV policy. And at one point of time, we saw that they wanted to overtake the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, and by trying to bulldoze the EV policy as well. So they wanted things to happen fast, and they were very adamant about it. So it is good because, as seen, that we are facing a lot of problems with pollution, and to quite an extent, the auto rickshaws, the IC engine auto rickshaws, which are causing a lot of pollution by using a lot of adulterated fuel, by not well maintaining their auto rickshaws, etc. So therefore, e-mobility is a very good welcome for the society and from the health point of everybody. So now that the government of India also has announced a policy where they intend to have charging stations initially 4 kilometers, even they want to reduce it up to 3 kilometers. And a lot of things have been finalized in this line. And about 60% of 62 cities in India have been taken by Rajasthan Electric and Instruments Limited for setting up these charging stations. And a number of facilities, both from the government of India as well as the state governments in all the states, are having their own EV policies and trying to promote this. And as seen from the 2020 sales of EVs, the source is SMEV, about 152,000 vehicles have been sold in the last year, total EV vehicles in India. And coming specific to Karnataka state, we have taken a lot of initiatives in trying to promote. In fact, we were the pioneers in trying to bring out the EV policy in 2017 itself. And from thereafter, we have started working on it. And we were giving subsidy to remove the two-stroke vehicles by replacing it into four-stroke vehicles. And after that, then now for the EV vehicles, in FAME 2, we have recommended for 60,000 rupees as subsidy to the government, and it is yet to be finalized, taking into consideration the cost of auto rickshaw is 3.2 lakhs. And the state subsidy would be 1.5 lakh and 60,000 from Government of India's FAME policy. So therefore, the total subsidy amount would be about 2.1 lakh. The Government of India has also earmarked a budget of 30 crore, which has been rolled out last year to be given in the form of subsidy. And as a priority, the Government of India also has sanctioned 5,000 permits for electric vehicles. And Government of Karnataka also has made a 1 lakh subsidy allotment for conversion of IC engine vehicle auto rickshaw to electric vehicle. So a total number of 33,000 electric vehicles have been registered in Karnataka, and auto rickshaws only are about 57 auto rickshaws have been registered. And Government of India has also given a special identification mark for these vehicles. Their number plates are green in color to identify that this vehicle is powered with electric fuel. And then a number of charging stations have also been identified, and already they're ready for inauguration. About 122 by the Bangalore Electricity Company. 122 charging stations are ready, and out of this we have 20 fast chargers and the remaining are slow chargers. So they have to be inaugurated. Because of COVID-19, this has been postponed. And there are other various initiatives where, with the help of CSR funds, and government is also providing land for setting up of this testing stations. And the first preference is given in government office areas and within the proximity of the government offices. The permission is being given to the BESCOM, the Bangalore Electricity Company, to set up these charging stations, etc. So therefore, a lot of activity has been happening in this line, though there is a small or a minor setback due to the COVID-19. However, I am positive that in some form, people might get out of the public transport and try to prefer the auto rickshaw wherever the individual passengers want to travel in order to maintain the social distancing, etc. So I feel very positive about the future of EV auto rickshaws especially is going to be good in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. We next have Mr. Soham Bhattacharjee from Ujjavam Finance. He is responsible for automobile financing. He is very passionate about formation, financial inclusiveness, and specializes on business modeling and strategy for three-wheeler segment. I request Mr. Soham to.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, at the end, for electric auto rickshaws and any electric three-wheeler for final adoption, large-scale and financing option availability is of critical importance. So, in this regard, presently, what I will be telling you about how financiers have been thinking of this industry and how it has evolved just before the pre-COVID, and due to the COVID now also what has happened. So when this industry, this electric auto rickshaw industry was starting up, it was more of an electric rickshaw and electric three-wheelers industry in the northern part of India. And at that point of time, there were not major manufacturers who had not forayed into this segment. So at that point of time, certain financiers have financed some of the vehicles, and unfortunately, the track record was poor. After which, what happened was financiers was more risk averse to this segment, and so every financiers have been concentrating on this segment and has been looking at, but has not been proactively financing. So presently, if you see how financing is happening in this segment, is based on the branch manager and the local dealers relationship. Based on that only, the financing is happening, rather than a pan-India or overall India-wide financing mode for this segment. However, thanks to the government's lot of effort, as well as major manufacturers like Piaggio, Mahindra, who have entered into this market, this has resulted in giving confidence to the financiers. You have to understand here the financiers are taking a risk not only on the customer but also on the product. So having good, strong products from companies like Piaggio or Mahindra helps financiers to mitigate the risk in some way. So as a result, certain financiers, including ours, had started financing in this segment, albeit on a pilot basis. However, overall, a lot of financiers have been looking at this segment very interestingly. One of the major reasons, as Mr. Raghav said, was automobile industry on a whole was stagnant or growing very minuscule. However, this electric three-wheeler segment have been growing rapidly. So as financiers also, we have been looking at segments where we can lend, the fast-growing segments where we can lend. And this is one segment which financiers are looking at to lend. Presently, there are very few financiers who are lending, but everyone and others will slowly come into the picture once volumes come into a size. Another thing is that but just in the last 6 to 7 months, when financiers were coming into this thing, we would also, what happened was COVID-19. Now when COVID-19 impacted, just when financiers was getting confident of this segment, COVID-19 impact is there. So now what financiers, I think at least for the next 2 to 3 months, we don't expect financiers to start again financing these vehicles because they want to see how the vehicle viability is getting impacted due to this. Therefore, one of the reasons why financiers are interested in this electric auto rickshaws is another thing is that on a unit economic basis, electric auto rickshaw makes more sense for a driver than an ICE vehicle. So financiers have if adopted correctly, financiers are interested. But now, due to COVID-19, what sort of regulation comes? Because electric auto rickshaws is a per passenger based fees is their earning and not a basically meter rates. So if now there are restrictions that in an electric auto rickshaw, only one person can sit or 2% can sit, how would that impact their ability is something which we need to look over in the next 2 to 3 months. But however, electric auto rickshaw as a segment is here to stay and is the future for the three-wheeler segment, is what we believe, and along with our overall the community financing community believes. And we see in the next 12 to 18 months, this is where the most growth for a financier in their product portfolio for any vehicle finance is where we expect. Thank you.
Thank you, Soham. I now invite Ms. Rohita Kochu Pillai. She is a process manager from Three-Wheeler United. She has 5 years experience in handling three-wheeler driver community. Very passionate about helping auto rickshaw drivers community, building and engineering these for and encouraging them to go for greener vehicles. She her experience working on drivers, bringing them towards greener vehicles. I would request her to talk about challenges faced by the auto rickshaw community and her perspective about what are the likely solutions. Rohita, are you there?
Thank you so much, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Teddy for organizing.
Slightly louder.
Hello.
Can you speak slightly louder? Yeah.
Am I audible now, sir?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to take this opportunity to first thank Teddy for organizing this webinar and for inviting. So I would like to talk about the driver's perspective. So first, I would just talk about what are the challenges that are being faced by these drivers today in this lockdown scenario, and even post-lockdown, what are the challenges that they will be facing. Right now, as everybody knows, that almost about 80% of these drivers, they are daily income earners, and this is their primary profession. They have no other source of income. And suddenly, with the onset of lockdown, everybody were worried about their jobs. But there were some sectors who came forward and told their employees to work from home. But for auto driver community, working from home is definitely not an option. They have to be on the road. They need customers to earn their income. They were very anxious since the ride service was their only source of income. With every lockdown date coming to an end, these waited in bated breath, expecting to hear some sort of a relaxation about public transport being able to fly on the road. But even when the general public were allowed to use their personal vehicles and run on the roads, the public mode of transport was still off. Drivers suddenly lost all their means of earning. With no concrete information and help from any side, they found it extremely difficult to follow themselves. Post the lockdown, they're still looking at strict guidelines and maybe time curfews to follow. This means they will not have the freedom to ride late in the evenings and earn more. And in general, the public would transport due to fear of coming in contact with the virus. Unless these drivers don't follow the safety measures and the customers are convinced about this procedure, there will still be hesitation to use public mode of transportation. But for a driver, their primary concern is whether they will be able to earn enough money to support their family and survive. Additionally, they will also have to worry about their housing rent, their pending EMIs, and students' education once the school reopens. They might be looking at months before dream about stabilizing their income. So, with respect to the e-auto sector, the challenges that the drivers would face would be definitely the electrification is the way forward, with even the government supporting this initiative. That being said, we have to understand that this is a fairly new market. With the current lockdown or post-lockdown situation, the need of the hour is for these drivers to earn sufficient money to feed his family and survive. And with uncertainty about their income post-lockdown, the last thing on their mind is shifting to an EV. Even a week prior to the lockdown, they have experienced about almost 50 to 60% drop in their income. If only there is demand amongst the customers, can these drivers stay in this profession, or they would be forced to take up other jobs, which would affect the e-auto sector. Having said that, today, post-lockdown, we have no idea where this demand is going to come from for these auto rickshaw drivers. There are people who have varied opinions about it. Some of the people have stated that because there will be a fear in using the public transport, people will prefer using their personal vehicles. So there will be a drop in the demand for auto rickshaws. And there are others who say that due to the reduced occupancy rate or in the public mode of transport, the demand for auto rickshaws will rise up. But these are all scenarios that we have to observe and see for the next couple of months post the lockdown to see where the demand is coming from, or if there is a demand, or whether the customers prefer using their vehicles or like self-drive services like Zoom cars. So this is something that we would definitely have to observe in the few coming months. Thank you so much.
We'll first take up the questions received during the registration from the participants. Sugandha,
Yes, sir.
will we be taking up the questions received during the registration?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll just put.
Will you be putting the slide? Yeah.
Yeah.
The requirement, and there are a number of auto rickshaw associations in all the cities who seek for this extension of these permits, or they sometimes object when the government sanctions new permits. So likewise, in some cities, they have already removed this permit condition. To mention in Mumbai, Mumbai city, they have removed, they have done away with the permit system for auto rickshaws in Mumbai city. So likewise, this if the electric vehicles are going to be more and more, then if there is no permit required, then that issue is not going to be there. So in order to maintain some control over this, the permit system has been in the Motor Vehicle Act and rules, which is being followed throughout the country.
Thank you. The next question is for, I think, Raghav Rao. Will it be possible and beneficial if we replace the battery operated electric rickshaw with ones powered by hydrogen fuel? Will you answer, Raghav?
Sure, I can, but as of now,
I can support you. No.
yeah, no problem, sir. See, three-wheeler, as such, the customer is not a tech-savvy sort of thing. And when it is coming to three-wheelers, it is more of reduction of pollution, and that is a major aspect. When it is coming electric, it is almost zero emissions. So, in my view, electrics is the best option in comparison with hydrogen fuel segment.
Not only that, the hydrogen fuel cell vehicles still are under experimentation, and only two manufacturers in the world till now have produced, some vehicles with hydrogen fuel cell which are under, observation. And second issue also would be from where will we get the hydrogen as a fuel? So that itself is going to be a bigger task. Till now, there is no economical way of making hydrogen from any source. So unless that technology also matures, it will be very difficult to adopt hydrogen fuel cells for any automobiles. Next, madam. Next slide. This question is for Mr. Soham Bhattacharya. Uh, are you giving any loans for electric vehicles?
Yeah, Ujjivan Small Finance Bank have started electric three-wheeler loans. They have started in basically northern India. So in Karnataka, we had just started, but then COVID had come. But yes, we have a product, and we have already started across a lot of states.
The next question is, how can regulatory norms under Motor Vehicle Act be eased and financing mechanisms introduced to make electric autos more viable in the post-COVID world?
Yeah. So under the Motor Vehicle Act, first thing what happened in the last year is that when it came in, the electric three-wheelers was part of the Motor Vehicle Act. So now what, as a financier, I can hypothecate the vehicle. So this is an added advantage to me. But hypothecation of the vehicle will not help me unless I cannot, if the customer gets defaulted, I can take it and sell it in the market. So here I think manufacturers, financiers, and other partners needs to come together and create a mechanism through maybe buybacks and other things through which it will help. As of now, as per regulatory norms basis, there has been things which has been done, which has helped the financiers. But now the next step we have to take to actually for large scale adoption.
Sir, I would like to add a point here. The other thing which we can look at also, see, three-wheeler is currently it is under contract carriage model. Okay. So if we allow EVs as a ticketing model also, that can also trigger adaptability faster.
Yeah. Next slide, ma'am. This is for Ms. Rohita. How is COVID-19 going to affect the EV auto sector?
Thank you for the question. So I feel there are two factors that can primarily affect. First, like I mentioned before, that we need to first understand the situation of the current post-COVID situation, whether there is enough demand for these auto rickshaw drivers to drive and earn their daily income. Only then can they worry about shifting towards EV. Another aspect is, I feel, is the finance sector, where they had to deal with the government order of 3 months of EMI relaxation. With this, I think they will be more cautious about funding to a new market. They might also increase their interest rates to cover their operational costs, and maybe they might reduce the loan amount being dispersed to safeguard their portfolio. So I feel these two are the two primary factors which will affect the e-auto sector.
Next question is with COVID-19 severely impacting IPT sector, what steps need to be taken to help adoption of e-autos?
Again, thank you for the question. First thing is we need to create demand amongst the customers to take auto rickshaw. That is the first step to ensure the survival of this community. It would be difficult to revive this sector without enough demand for auto rickshaws. This could adversely affect the e-auto sector. And the steps what can be taken is maybe the OEMs could incorporate changes in the vehicle design, like putting a transparent sheet barrier between the customer and the driver, and maybe a holder to keep the sanitizer, and changes like that in the vehicle design itself. And of course, the government bringing in regulations for the adoption would help boost it in a larger scale.
Thank you. Would Mr. Raghav like to add anything to what she said about modifying the vehicle for meeting the COVID restrictions?
Sir, as such, yes, there will be localized solutions coming up, but as a manufacturer front, it will take some point of time. But localized solutions already available in marketplace, like the separators between the passenger and driver compartments, as well as.
Considering the fact that these restrictions about social distancing, etc., are going to continue for quite some time, I thought if OEMs are able to give at least a solution which can be adopted by actual dealer.
It is, sir. It is under process. That's what I said.
Cost, yeah. Instead of leaving it to the dealers to do what they want.
No. We already in a finalization of designing of the kits, because we cannot completely rebuild the structures. It affects the ability of the customers. But for a time being, they can put up the separators that we are actually building a design and give it to people. And also we are thinking to supply the kits at a dealer level.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. This is for Mr. Raghav Rao. No doubt that e-rickshaw would lead to reduction of GHG gases. Some studies say that there are also embodied GHG emissions from the production of batteries that are used in e-vehicles. How much does this affect the environment?
Sir, slightly bit lengthier answer here, because we need to understand two things here. One, it is a clear demarcation of e-rickshaws versus e-autos. Okay, primarily e-rickshaws runs a lead acid battery model, which actually life cycle is lesser, and it also emits the poisonous gases sort of thing. So there it is a issue of these emissions, and by till so far, these e-rickshaws also have facing a challenge in terms of speed limits, restrictions, all that. This can be surely addressed by bringing e-autos, which are primarily runs on lithium-based batteries, lithium-ion based batteries. When you check with the life cycle of lithium-ion based batteries versus the conventional, surely it protects the environment, because lithium-ion battery gives a very wide range of life cycle. Even after the automobile life is over, it can be used in multiple segments, like it can be powered for TV, cell phone towers sort of thing. So the life cycle of this lithium-ion battery is going to be 20 years. And another thing, yes, the electric, when you are building electric networks, so the consumption rate and how we produce the electricity also makes sense. But I pretty strongly believe India is marching towards solar energy, wind energy, and from moving out from the coal energy segment. In going forward, once we adapt to lithium-ion technology and moving towards this solar and wind energy, we are going to address the GHG emissions, greenhouse gases, in a big way.
A similar question: how many kg of CO2 per kilometer can be saved using electric auto rickshaw instead of petrol three-wheelers?
So that is 0.1 kilograms, 0.11 kilograms per kilometer petrol emits the carbon CO2, whereas electric autos are zero emissions in that context.
Next question for you is: in coming years, will there be huge piles of waste scrapped batteries from e-autos, and will we and this will be a major concern for the environment. How do we look ahead, minimizing overall impact, and what should be our readiness in this regard?
I have addressed. Yeah, I have already addressed it in the previous this thing. Particularly when it comes to e-autos, we are going to use lithium-ion batteries, and the lifespan of lithium-ion battery, even after automobile technology, is going to be 20 years. So even if you consider that the pile-up of scrap and waste, it can be very well addressed in that concept, because we are even further when it is going to improvise, it further extends the lithium-ion battery life cycle. I don't think it is going to create any issues in Indian context.
I just want to add something to what you said. There is also a government directive, which is a draft directive in circulation, which is being now commented about how to handle the battery, lithium-ion batteries before scrappage, and who would be responsible for its proper scrapping and what needs to be done. And the total details are being discussed, and it will be mandated by the government. Along with the electrification of the automobiles, even that regulation is going to come into force very soon. Next question again, Mr. Raghav Rao. Swappable or fixed battery, which one will dominate auto market and why? And what kind of market will pick up adoption of EV faster, small or big cities?
Sir, it is again based on the segmentation. In my view, commercial vehicles, either three-wheelers or heavy trucks, will primarily adopt swappable battery technology, because you need to keep the turnaround time is very less, and these vehicles primarily should be on the road rather than at the charging stations. So for commercial vehicles, it is going to be swappable battery, because today the even range also issue. That's part of the thing. When it comes to personalized segment like two-wheelers and personal cars, it is going to be fixed battery market, because they have once they go to office, they can park and charging it, or even at the household stuff they can do it. When it comes to adaptation of EVs, three-wheelers particularly, it all depends upon permit availability, what is the acquisition cost, it is going up to those markets. All these matters. Like example, today, if you see it, 80% of e-rickshaws are e-rickshaws primarily. E-autos are very short in life, just 3 months, 4 months old majorly. Delhi, UP, West Bengal, these are the states contributing 80%. If you look at all these states has a regulation on permits, whereas e-rickshaws there is no permit. So if the customer want to buy a e-rickshaw, auto, normal conventional ICV model in Delhi, he need to spend around 5 lakh rupees. Instead of that, he's getting a e-rickshaw which is at 1.6 lakhs, 1.7 lakh rupees. So that is making a big differentiator. Permit, yes, ultimately permit wherever ICV engine has a permit and electric vehicle is not having a permit, the adaptation will be faster. And also basically on acquisition cost, wherever it is lower, it is going to the adoption is faster. As of now, we are seeing a very big surge in terms of tier 1 cities and metros in particularly northern part and eastern part, primarily these cities. Tier 1 cities will be the faster adaptability.
Thank you. Next slide, ma'am. This is for Mr. Ahmed. What policies will the government roll out to improve EV infrastructure in India?
As it is, the government of India has removed the permit for the EV auto rickshaws, and all the state governments throughout India have given a tax exemption for these vehicles. Further, they are facilitating for the charging stations, battery swapping, and all these things are already in pipeline, and some are already ready for inauguration, especially in Bangalore city, etc.
Next question is, what according to you is the level of confidence among financiers for pushing a loan product for electric autos? Either you can answer or Mr. Som can answer this.
I think it's relates to Som. Let him answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, see, first I will tell that the three-wheeler segment, especially for financiers, they were never too confident with the three-wheeler segment, even in ICE for lending, because it has a very high NPA, except in certain pockets. So, as a confidence, it is, I won't say they have a very huge confidence in this segment, but this segment also gives to financiers two things. It gives to financiers a higher yield compared to other products. So as a result, financiers are now slowly moving into this segment.
Thank you. Next question for Mr. Ahmed is, can shared electric autos be considered as a substitute to traditional bus services in high congestion urban centers?
See, if you have seen the cities, all the cities are already congested. And if we, as of now, the auto rickshaws are covered by the contract carriage permit. So he has to pick up a passenger from point A and take him to point B. So he cannot pick up or set down passengers en route. So it is a contract between the passenger and the driver. So that is the condition of the permit. So in cities, if we permit, most of the cities, especially I'm talking about Bangalore, in fact, we have even not permitted e-rickshaws in Bangalore city just because the average speed of the vehicles in Bangalore city is about 8 to 10 kilometers an hour. So therefore, if we permit, we have 130,000 auto rickshaws in Bangalore city alone. So if we permit these auto rickshaws to run as stage carriages or shared auto rickshaws, what we call them. So every time a passenger shows his hand, they will stop, pick up, set down, and it will be a continuous process. So this can even lead to accidents, and also the travel time will be longer for all the vehicles en route, because we don't have a separate lanes in the cities because all the lanes are full. If there is a dedicated lane for auto rickshaw, for a bus, like the other places, then it is something we can think of. So right now, it doesn't seem to be viable. But generally, if you see in the rural side, the auto rickshaws are not viable. So they, even though the permit does not permit them, they still ply on a shared basis. But in cities, this is the problem to allow them to have a shared mode.
Thank you. Thank you. Next question is repetition of the first question. So next slide, please. Next slide. This is for Mr. Soham. How to solve the problem of auto drivers to have access to better finance at affordable interest rates for adopting electric auto rickshaw?
Yeah. So first, at this stage, more than affordable interest rate, what is more important is availability of finance. At this stage, unfortunately, availability of finance for electric auto rickshaw by large-scale financial institutions is limited. There are few organizations which are only giving this thing. However, financiers and manufacturers together, as well as there are other partners like in Delhi, there are some organizations who are creating platforms for electric auto rickshaws. So these partners are coming together and creating models which will give the financiers a comfort, as well as giving finally the end customers a viable product proposition. So manufacturers and financiers are coming together. Like for example, the warranty for the lithium-ion vehicles. This is an added benefit for the financiers. Like for 3 years, they can be less worried about the vehicle. Additionally, if things like buyback can come, like for if there is a default and for a certain sort of specified condition, there can be an option for a buyback. This will again give the financiers that comfort to lend. So overall, actually at this point of time, manufacturers and financiers needs to come together and create a common ground, which is already in place and happening, and this is in process and it will keep on happening. As you were saying, like organizations like our bank and various other financial institutions have already started lending to this segment, and I am sure going forward this will increase.
Thank you. Next question, will you be adding anything? How are banks looking at financing e-auto post-COVID?
Yeah. So post-COVID, I think as I told earlier also, next few months, banks will look how the industry is shaping up. Because you have to understand, presently for banks also, they will be investing their liquidity or their funding in the most safest product which they have, and they will invest their capital in the most safest product with the most comfortable returns at this stage of scenario. So next 2 to 3 months, I don't see banks to be very aggressive in this segment, or they will stay back and see how the segment is evolving, how the norms are coming of the social distancing norms for a person sitting in an electric auto or any auto. So based on that, banks will take the next step. Yeah.
Next slide. This is for Ms. Rohita. Is it not easier and logical to push migration from 25 to electric? Sorry.
Yes.
So, two-stroke to electric auto rather than four-stroke. Depending upon the age of the four-stroke, push the 5 plus years old four-stroke auto to move into electric auto.
Thank you for the question again. As per the government regulation, two-stroke were not supposed to apply from April 2020. But due to the impact of lockdown, keeping a check on the ban is the last thing on anybody's mind. Yes, logically, two-stroke is the easier choice to push to electric vehicles. We are in the process of discussing with OEMs to work out a buyback scheme where we would buy these two-stroke autos from the drivers, scrap them, and use that as their initial amount for the down payment. But this is still in the work in progress. It's still not on the papers yet. And for older four-stroke vehicles, drivers who want to purchase newer vehicles, for them, the logical choice would be to migrate to EV than upgrade to a BS6 model, because BS6 model is definitely costlier than your BS4. So their logical choice would be to shift to an EV, since the overall operational cost of the vehicle and the total ownership cost at the end of the cycle would be lesser in an EV. And government regulation shift towards an EV and provide some sort of a direct subsidy or incentive to these drivers, along with some reduction in the cost of the vehicles, will motivate them to make the shift towards the EV. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is, will auto ridership see a dip due to COVID-19 in the immediate term, 1 to 2 years?
Thank you. So as I said before, there are contrasting opinions amongst people. Some say they might see a dip in the demand, and some say they might see an increase in the demand. But earlier, if you see, majority of the drivers would cater to large number of women, IT professionals, school trips, customers at malls, metros, and pubs. Due to social distancing norms, most of the companies have asked their employees to work from home, and the other places of public gathering are closed. People who do not own personal vehicle might also opt for self-driven services like Zoom cars, and I feel that due to social distancing norms, the concept of shared rides with aggregators like Ola and Uber might be affected. So there might be a increase in the demand for autos. But at this point of time, it is uncertain where the demand would come from. It can only be observed over a period of time and see how the pattern changes around the social distancing norms and the fear of coming in contact with the virus.
Madam, next question I think is a repeat of what has been asked earlier, but however, I would like you to see if you can add anything. How to ensure safety while traveling in an auto post-COVID, especially when the spread of COVID is quite faster in metals. Will the drivers be neat and clean?
Right, thank you again. Spreading of the virus is definitely a public mode of transportation due to multiple users availing the service. Since we're all going to be going about our daily businesses with the risks of COVID-19 infection amongst us, following safety measures should be a top priority and has to be maintained by the drivers as well as the users. But we should also try and understand the plight of the drivers today. These drivers who used to earn daily, they have not had any income for almost about 2 months right now. And their primary concern is how to survive. So these drivers might not be in a position to afford buying a sanitizing kit. Under the Switch Asia project, we are planning to train drivers on implementation of safety measures like using sanitizers, often wearing masks, cleaning the vehicle with a disinfectant before boarding and after deboarding by the users, using some sort of a transparent sheet as a barrier between the driver and the users. And along with this, we would also be providing hygiene kits to about 1,000 to 2,000 drivers. But we can only cover certain number of drivers under this. The government could come up with a few regulatory norms that make it mandatory for the drivers to follow, like maintaining social distancing, not crowding in parking places, etc. But the real challenge is making sure the drivers are equipped with sanitizing kits. So support through any channels to provide hygiene kits to these drivers would be of great help and would be deeply appreciated. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any more questions, ma'am? Sugandha?
So
That's
yeah,
all. I'll take up questions from
participants if they
Yeah.
want.
You still have time, na?
Yes, sir. We have 5-10 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, I will go from the bottom.
Participants, if they have any question, they can speak. They can just press the button, raise their hand.
Hey, where is that hand signal? I'm a bit sick.
Yeah.
With reduced traffic and in turn reduced income for auto drivers, would it pose a challenge for them to be ready to purchase a e-auto by discarding old auto? Mr. Som will take it.
So this is where exactly why financing is required for this segment. So presently, see what in this segment presently the loan to value ratios, which is presently offered, is around 60 to 70%. So around 40% of the down payment is something which the auto driver has to do, which is not feasible. As a result, what happens is that 40% they need to take from other sources, which becomes a money lender. And overall, their whole things fail. So as a result, organizations like us and others have started to offer out of products the higher loan to value. And I think with the existing auto, which has a better second-hand market, they can get a much scrap value for the down payment. So I don't think it will be a major impact will happen. But yes, the most important thing is the viability. And as I told earlier, next few months, and also Ms. Rohita was saying that how it pans out is something which we have to see, post which only we will finally comment on how financing and adoption will.
Thank you. Next question is for Mr. Raghav Rao. What are the incentives being provided for electric autos?
Sir, we are coming up with all the exchange sort of schemes to promote whatever the old vehicles are there that can be replaced with the electric autos. That's one thing we are providing from the organization front. Another thing, yes, there are FAME 2 subsidies available, 10K 10,000 rupees per every kilowatt hour battery. So that is also there from the central government stuff. Apart from that, yes, state level thing, there is no life tax and there is a GST. Also, it is only 5% on electric. All these figures are there.
Thank you. Next question is, when are you expecting the infrastructure to be built up in future and in how many years? Who will take this, Mr. Ahmed? Sir, you have to unmute your speaker.
This is the charging infrastructure and battery swapping facilities being provided. So there are very positive improvements in all the states and especially cities. And the government of India intends that there should be a charging station every 3 to 4 kilometers. So on these lines, so the system is already working, and hopefully in the next 1 or 2 years we must be able to see the change and the infrastructure available for multiple charging, fast charging, and even personal charging. All these facilities are the SOPs are being finalized. So once they are out, we should be able to have a clear picture of it.
So I just like to add on, like Bangalore, it is required close to 80 hard stations when it comes to swappable, which we already mapped out. So it will be created that grid within a year's time. Just only the thing we are awaiting permissions from the BESCOM on electric connections. Okay. Otherwise, it will take another 1 year if I'm talking about only Bangalore as a city.
Raghav, next question is for you.
Yeah.
From a driver's point of view, which will be economical to use, CNG or EV?
Sir, it is EV is more economical in terms of two ways. One is the cost of running cost is pretty low. It is less than 1 rupee, and also there is no maintenance cost. So when if you compare with the life cycle of the products, EV stands out better.
The next question is, where could one get data on age of auto rickshaws in Bangalore? Since in order to get IC auto rickshaw moved to electric, it is important to know the age, as less than 4-year-old vehicle may be reluctant to change, while vehicles which are older have a higher propensity to shift to electric. Mr. Ahmed, can you help?
Can you repeat the question, sir?
This basically they are asking how to get the data about auto rickshaws which are older than 4 years, so that the people who are interested in converting them to electric can approach those users.
So this is available with every transport commissioner's office. We have our statistics department, so we can have the registration data from there, and then they can utilize it for their purpose.
Any participant has any specific question? I think you can raise your hand and ask the question.
Sir, I don't think so. There is anyone. Yeah.
Okay. We have covered all the questions which came on the chat.
Yes.
So I think yes.
So can you hear me?
Yes.
Just wanted to ask the people present here that this is the lithium-ion battery consists of the nickel and cobalt. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Please go ahead.
The lithium-ion battery uses nickel and cobalt, and the impact of this is the very first impact can be addressed to the resource depletion and global warming, continue on for moving forward to ecological toxicity. Okay, this is the first thing I have, and second thing, the charging stations. Before the vehicle is actually on the road, or prior to the operation, I should say, there will be some uh, there will be like heat generation at the charging stations. Hello.
Yes, please go.
So would it
You
not
have
add
completed
to
a
the
question?
global warming? Would it not be adding to the global warming altogether?
Mr. Raghav, will you be able to address this question?
No, sir.
There are two components in my question. One is the nickel and cobalt, which are which have the highest, in fact, I should say, they are having the highest potential for environmental impacts. Right now, we are speaking of lithium-ion batteries. Every now and then, we are hearing about these lithium-ion batteries. But certainly, if you see the production of nickel and cobalt, it's very extensive and exhaustive task, and the impact of these batteries may not seem to us very clear on the roads, but definitely during the production, it causes an extensive work, and a lot of, I should say, resource depletion is incurred in between. This is the first question I am asking, and the second one, I spoke about the global warming owing to the charging stations, which would be adding to the global warming altogether.
So as far as battery, manufacturing is concerned, there are a lot of precautions which are being taken in the manufacture of the battery cells. That's where the basic raw materials are used. Okay, all environmental, precautions for preserving the environment or not damaging the environment are undertaken. And I don't think everybody gets into business of manufacturing cells. So all precautions are taken, and also there is a very strict regulatory requirement for handling the battery, these
See, handling,
cells,
sorry, I'm
and
interrupting.
also just 1 second, let me complete. Handling cells and
Sorry.
also the battery when the life, after it is, life is over, how to handle them, where they can be used for secondary use, and also at the end of its total life, what is to be done and how the spent battery can be used for extracting whatever these metals. All this is being drafted and it will be enforced very strictly. In other developed countries where electric vehicles are already there, all these things are in place. So in India also, this draft has been already released by the government and is under discussion. So I'm sure it will come into force. That will take care of the environmental concerns.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
About the global warming, at least I am hearing this for the first time. I need to study this. I have no answer.
Okay. Okay. Probably we'll be having another seminar also once again.
Yeah, sure.
Just wanted to add what you were saying about these guidelines and coming by the government of India. It is already in discussion.
The Ministry of Environment and Forest has already issued a draft guidelines.
I have gone through it, sir. I have gone through it.
Yeah. Okay.
I have gone through it, but my concern, my concern is when we are saying that lithium and
Hello.
So I think we have exceeded the time allocated for the webinar.
I would like to thank all the panelists for their discussion and also answering all the questions which have been received from the participants, not only during the registration, but also for the questions what we have received through chat box. I also like to thank all the participants for their patient hearing and active participation in this webinar. Over to you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So,
Brinda.
yeah, now on behalf of Terry, I would like to extend our thanks to our moderator, Mr. Ivy Rao, for completing a session timely. I also thank to our speakers for sharing their thoughts and experiences, leading towards some feasible solutions to combat the situation due to COVID-19. And finally, thanks to all the participants for joining this webinar. I would also like to thank our IT help, Mr. Veer, for facilitating this discussion. I would just like to inform you all that we are planning a third discussion before May 30th, which would be a closure of Nama Auto project and a way forward from the project team. We will be showcasing our work and project components, followed by the discussion by policymakers, researchers, and other stakeholders. We'll share the details with all of you shortly. So looking forward to all of you joining us again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Raghav. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.